Today's episode of the Sidebar podcast was made possible thanks in part to lawyers, guns, and money. Yes, Warren Zevon had it right. To truly be free in this day and age, you need a lawyer, a gun, and some money. That's why the American Bar Association, the NRA, and the Bank of America has created this PSA. To bail you out when you shoot someone for something they have and you don't, and you want and you take it. Whatever your poison, Lawyers, Guns, and Money has it covered. Hit and run's more fun with lawyers, guns, and money. Shooting a toe is a kick in the foot with lawyers, guns, and money. A snatch and grab? That ain't so bad with lawyers, guns, and money. Lawyers, guns, and money. You need lawyers, guns, and money. Lawyers, guns, and money. It's lawyers, guns, and money.
You're eating a Twix when you remember childhood obesity affects 1 in 5 kids. Welcome to the Sidebar. I'm Clint Myers-Novak, filling in for Sebastian Morales, who's currently wandering the streets trying to find the nearest polling place. Don't forget to vote, folks. Jack Coolidge is a contributor to Imbibe Magazine with his article On the Scene, which details his journey to find the intersection of political power and booze across the nation, and specifically in the heartland. Jack, welcome to the Sidebar.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. I'm glad to get the opportunity. Thank you.
It is indeed an honor. Now, I want to jump right in with one of your biggest discoveries recently. You were in Oregon and you found an ice cube subculture that was previously undiscovered.
Yes, most indigenous cultures in the greater United States area have been, discovered, well documented through various periodicals. However, in my journey to discover something unique specifically around what has become a burgeoning field of the drinksmith culture, which is, of course, ice cubes, I found myself tracking waterfalls in southern Oregon and came upon a self-sufficient community of ice smiths, ice sculptors, ice miners.
Mm-hmm. And most of them, of course, were adorned in flannel and cargo pants.
Yes, it was a de facto uniform of theirs, not store-bought, of course. They made it all themselves from bark products. I don't believe they had hemp available, but they assured me that they would like some hemp.
They actually have one of their more famous drinks that they have made in the past was a hemp-infused vodka.
Yes, in an effort to build resources so they could acquire foodstuffs, they made the decision to develop their own brand of vodka. And of course, the key to the taste of their vodka was the ice cube freezing process. Mm-hmm. A lot of people found the taste watered down, of course, including myself. Needless to say, they found their own niche, and you can find their vodka in bars all over the heartland.
Well, like so many undiscovered cultures that then get discovered by the mainstream society, do you believe that these Oregonian ice cubers are now being exploited?
I do, and so do they. A lot of them have changed drastically since I've discovered them. Many of them have found hate in their hearts. Fame and fortune hasn't found them very well, I would say. They were in their own Eden, and it has since been destroyed by the god of capitalism.
There have even been reports that some of them have started to wear Levi jeans from time to time.
Yes, unfortunately, many of them use their newfound income to venture forth to Portland, most of which had not been seen before by most of them, and they found themselves enthralled by different threads and fabrics, mostly denim. And when they discovered that these goods could be bought, not with other goods, but with sort of a representation of something of value, which I told them they could just call cash. They couldn't help themselves, and they find themselves clipping newspapers looking for sales. Excuse me.
I'm sorry, Jack. That must be a very touching subject because as the first discoverer, you feel partially responsible.
It's my fault, before I discovered them and made them into the phenomenon that they are. They were happy. They were themselves. They had no shame.
Do you think that their civilization, their society will endure?
No, I don't. I think they'll meet the same fate that all indigenous cultures, whether in South America or Africa or the continental United States, meet, which is assimilation. I think soon you won't be able to tell the difference between a Southern Oregon ice smith and a barista at a local coffee shop.
That is tragic. Now, of course, you, Jack, know a lot about different cultures around the country. You, with your article, actually tore around. On the Scene is your article.
Yes.
And you tour the country looking at the intersection of political power and booze.
Yes.
What have you found, and what's the relationship between the two?
Well, it has been quite a journey, and something I've found is that through the economic empowerment that comes from manufacturing, selling your own liquor, there's a sense of pride and empowerment that comes with that. And it gives these subcultures an opportunity to attempt to govern themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they've had a lot of conflict with the federal authorities in their efforts to claim their own systems of government. And ultimately, their consumption of booze becomes their downfall, much like, not to oversimplify, but much like the Native Americans.
I see. And so the very thing that rises them up is actually the thing that makes them fall.
Correct. And it would be more tragic if I didn't realize that one day I'll be able to write the great American nonfiction tell-all based on that very tragic fact that they have created the thing that will ultimately destroy them.
Now, you, of course, this is not the first time you have encountered a subculture.
No.
You also ran into, in the South, a group of moonshiners.
Yes.
Who made a special moonshine which could make anyone dance.
Yes, and of course, this was in a town where, much like the popular motion picture Footloose, dancing was barred. And so this rebellious group were able to find this local potion of sorts, which is commonly referred to as liquor, booze, spirits, I like to call it. And it would in fact force people to dance, and it brought great joy to the land for a time, but eventually the dancing was too overwhelming for the town folk, and the local parishioner actually ran them all out of town, and they've actually since settled in Echo Park.
So you have found that a lot of these subcultures actually need to leave their own places of habitat. Is there any way for, like in Footloose, Kevin Bacon brings the town to his side? Is there any way to bring that subculture into the fold in a harmonious, coexistent way? Or is it just doom in every case?
I'm an optimist, and I've seen what people are capable of when they work together. I've also seen what people are capable of when they don't.
Mm-hmm.
One way to bring these people together is through drink. I've found in my experience that when people are inebriated or drunk, it's easier for them to communicate, for better or for worse. So if a person is evil when they get drunk, chances are they will speak evil. If they're good at heart, when they're drunk, they will speak good. I'm not a religious person, but I found that most church-going folk become quite evil when they're drunk.
And actually, in terms of working together, you discovered that the Moonshiners and the Ice Smiths actually had a collaboration after the Moonshiners moved to Echo Park. You've actually called it a improvement on the Ice Cube. So tell us about the shiny cubes.
Yeah, the shiny cubes sort of started as a happy accident. These moonshiners were camping in southern Oregon, and they were sampling their wares, and someone dropped a glass bottle, actually, and it broke into a stream. And somehow the consistency of the liquid kept it together, even in the stream, and as it ventured forth into one of the ice mines, when one of the ice cubes came out on the other side with the ice smiths, they discovered something quite magical and surreal. And they proceeded to lick the ice cube until they became quite drunk. But it was a different kind of drunk. It was a stimulating, convivial, joyous drunk that reminded them of the brotherhood of men and the sisterhood of women and all that keeps us bound together besides our common matter.
And this story is one of many, actually, in the tell-all book that you talked about earlier. The title is The Trail of Cubes. And tell us also about you met a drink smith who used natural wheat or natural rye to make his whiskey?
Yes, it was an interesting process. Now, his girlfriend, who he lived with, was vegetarian, and she grew a lot of various spices and vegetables for them to subsist on. Like myself, this gentleman was an alcoholic and decided to grow grain that he could then develop into his own whiskey product. And then once his girlfriend left and I moved in and helped him finish off the grain that he had grown, we both would get drunk together. And it's all kind of a blur, but at some point I got in my car and drove off, and I haven't heard from him since.
And you have since joined AA, of course.
Yes, I decided to join mainly because after my most recent concussion, the doctor implored me to, as did my extended family.
Would you ever think of going back to the whiskey smith and helping him get into AA, becoming his sponsor?
You're right. You're right. I should help him. I don't even know where he is. I ruined his life.
Jack, it seems that you are just ridden with guilt over all of your choices throughout your life. Our beloved researcher, the intern, Andy Harper, has actually just sent me a postcard that was addressed to you from his name was Theo Marshall, yes?
Yeah, I called him Teddy.
Theodore Marshall. Written to Jack Coolidge.
Oh, man.
On September 23rd of this year. And he tells you that he wishes you well and wishes that you would go forward in this life.
That's just like him.
I'm going to put out a call, put out a request to try and find the whiskey smith. If anyone listening knows where Theodore Marshall could be, then please let me know.
Just find Teddy and tell him I tried.
Now, at Imbibe Magazine, the magazine itself puts on a lot of charities. And you are, of course, putting on a charity for the indigenous tribes and indigenous smiths of the world.
Well, the world, of course, being the western coast of the United States.
Mm-hmm. Now, tell us about the upcoming charity in order to try and preserve the drinking culture, specifically in the western part of the United States.
Yes, we're trying to reroute funds that have been traditionally allocated by governments to welfare systems like Social Security, housing for homeless, education, things that people don't really use on a day-to-day basis. And we're trying to find a way to reroute those monies to self-sufficient, indigenous, patriotic cultures that are actually contributing something real and valuable to everyday society. Something people use every day, something people literally can't live without, like myself.
And how are you measuring the patrioticness of these cultures? Are you giving them a consensus or a test of some sort? A written test?
Yeah, they all have to have some connection to the United Kingdom, excluding England, of course. They must either have some kind of Irish or Scottish or Welsh descent. My geography may be a bit off, but my understanding is that that is where real America comes from.
That is where a lot of the central part of America comes from, the heartland.
Right, like Bakersfield.
Bakersfield comes specifically from Northern Ireland.
Yeah, so my time covering the beat in Visalia sort of gave me a real sense of the heartland and, you know, what it really means to be a native.
And of course, one of your biggest beats in Visalia, you were the beat beaver reporter, where you would drink drinks from the fur of beavers. They were referred to as dam drinks.
That's correct. That was kind of, you know, my first dip in the water of, you know, spirit subculture. And that just came from, you know, being on mushrooms, wandering around the forest, and finding a group of kids who had developed this weird fetish for beavers.
Mm. And of course, these children were at the same time indigenous to the lands of Visalia.
Yes, most of them were born at least, you know, within maybe a 20-mile radius of Visalia.
Mm-hmm. And so that inspired you to search for more local groups in different areas that defined those cultures.
Yeah, you know, that prompted me to say, hey, maybe there are more people like these kids who have found something special, something that keeps them going, something that gives them a shared experience that contributes to the fabric of our country.
So tell me about the Beaver Tribe.
Well, the Beaver Tribe, as it turned out, was actually quite vicious. On the surface of things, it was all fun and games, but it turned out that they were harvesting a lot of these beavers for various genetic experiments. And the results of their social engineering, I guess we could call it, was actually a new species of runts that ended up overflowing the school system and contributing in a lot of ways to the bankruptcy, actually, of Visalia County.
And so this Beaver Tribe had, in essence, taken over the county and were running it themselves.
That's exactly right. You know, much like an animal farm, once given authority, they, instead of becoming different than their former superiors, they just took on the characteristics of their former oppressors.
And of course, Animal Farm is a allegory towards Soviet Russia. What would you think the Beaver Tribe, what lessons can be gleaned from the Beaver Tribe?
Don't mix beaver and human genes, and be careful what you wish for. I'd say those are probably the big lessons I learned from that. And don't trust like 12-year-old kids. You know, there's a range of trust. I'd say 5 to 10, fine. 15 to 20, sure. Between 10 and 15, especially around age 12, 13, kids are real bastards.
Now, this, of course, gave you the idea for your first of many drink-inspired creations, the Orwellian cocktails.
Yeah, no, I have to admit, you know, I tried my hand at fashioning my own cocktail, and the Orwellian was my choice. But people didn't appreciate the fact that it was a mind control device, and it was sort of a backhanded attempt to create Manchurian candidates of my own, inspired, of course, by the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy.
Or Orwellian candidates.
Of course.
Thank you. We at the Sidebar very much appreciate wordplay. Actually, our beloved researcher, the intern Addie Harper, had one of those Orwellian cocktails.
Oh boy.
And I convinced her that she was an antelope running through the fields. And she actually ran right out the window of the second-story office building that we're in.
Oh.
And she landed in a den full of raccoons.
Wow, good for her.
That is a typical day for our beloved researcher, the intern Addie Harper.
Wow, and she stayed on after that, huh?
Well, she's here for college credit, and she doesn't have a choice,
Fair enough.
since she's mostly stapled to the desk.
Oh, wow.
Now, your drink actually created some sentient bartenders. Bartenders normally are known for being kind of absent-minded on the job, but you took over the minds of these bartenders. What did you try to accomplish with your bartender army?
Well, I wanted to create a feeling among patrons of bars that bartenders weren't any better than them, that they were there to help, that they were there to listen to them, that they weren't there to just ignore them, ignore the cues of eye contact, the single finger raise, holding money in your hand. Those things that bartenders seem to get off on, either ignoring or mocking in their own horrible way. I wanted to get in their heads and make them happy to have the jobs they have, to enjoy bringing joy to people's lives. As simple as that sounds, it was hard for them to do. And not to scoff at drink suggestions, not to be frustrated at the thought of making yet another old-fashioned with a single giant ice cube inside of it, but to say, hey, this ice cube came from this wonderful ice smith culture. I'm going to tell you all about where it came from. I'm going to pour this liquor over it in a very entertaining fashion, maybe do a flip with the bottle. And I'm going to bring joy to the world in a way that, my father as a priest couldn't.
Quick aside.
Sure.
We've talked a lot about how to improve ice cubes. Do you have any ideas on how to improve ice cube?
I do, actually, and that is to push the rewind button and give him a chance to start that solo career again. And tell him not to start the 3-on-3 league. It's just a personal choice, but I don't think we need it.
The 3-on-3 league has been lately one of Imbibe Magazine's and one of your own biggest patrons for your drinks, your upcoming drinks. You've gotten a lot into mocktails.
Yeah, well, mocktails has come as a suggestion from Ralph, my sponsor, hopefully former sponsor soon, and
North Carolina,
my brother.
based Ralph.
Yeah.
Your brother as well?
Yeah, they feel like as an alcoholic, constantly writing and learning and chasing booze isn't healthy.
And of course, Ice Cube is actually very active in the. He himself is not an alcoholic, but he understands the struggles.
Yeah, no, and he's actually, proposed to our publisher, a brand of mocktail that looks like booze, tastes like booze, gets you drunk like booze, but is in fact non-alcoholic. Unfortunately, doesn't exist.
I'm wondering how something could get you look, taste, and get you drunk like booze and not actually just be booze.
He keeps saying, what about Diet Coke? It's kind of his constant mantra. It's like, oh, well, they said the same, I'm not going to use his words, but they said the same, bullshit about Diet Coke, but everybody fucking drinks Diet Coke. It's pretty much every other sentence he says now.
We're going to take a break for a quick word from our sponsors, but we will be right back. Is your parking lot paradise being paved over with hot asphalt? Then you need Your Diapies. Your Diapies stops the show from getting on your road using a proprietary blend of pockets, flavor crystals, and pockets of both. Yes, I didn't stutter. That's pockets of pockets. It's the only adult diaper with all three that's on the market and marketed to seniors. With pockets. So drop that monocle, muddy bags, and stop running to the bathroom. Drop those Napoleons in the dessert dish and buy your diapers. It's your diapers. The do-does that diapers, the diaper do's that does. Your diapers. For when other diapers won't do. Support for the Sidebar podcast is also brought to you by The Other Friend. So, you're the other friend. The blurred blob of oversight. It's not your fault. You were born that way. Don't let it get you down. I wish I was selling you a tangible product that would boost your mood, or at least distract you from the pains of a lopsided friendship, but I'm not. I can't. I've got nothing. I've Got Nothing is a thin, vague pamphlet designed to make you feel worse, and the belief that more hurt is better than less hurt. It's like digging to China, and that's our philosophy. Let the other friend do the work and have the happiness. You've got feelings to deal with. I've got nothing. It's free, and you need it. And we're back with Jack Coolidge from Imbibe Magazine. Jack, I want to hear some stories about you rising through the ranks of bartenders and the bar scene in different cities around the country. We talked recently about your, I don't want to say your army of bartenders. How did you get to the point where you could serve these drinks to people nationwide?
Well, like a lot of entrepreneurial people in the spirits business, I had a briefcase. Inside of the briefcase, I had small samples of my Orwellian drinks. And once people tried them, they had no choice but to buy as much of it as possible. It was kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way.
Mm.
And
so even just one sip of these Orwellian drinks, and it works its magic on you.
Sure, yeah. And then once the vulnerability is exposed, I would capitalize on it. Guess I'm kind of vicious in that way.
Now, tell us about what you did to Teddy.
Did he tell you to ask me?
Well, on this postcard that we had, he said that he forgave you for what happened with the Orwell drink, and I am nothing if not curious, and nothing if not... I dig deep. During my Pulitzer Prize-winning turn as a journalist during Hurricane Sandy, I chased a seagull for 14 city blocks because I wanted to know where dry land was, like Noah and the Ark.
That's beautiful.
So I will chase a story. Once I get a scent of it, I will just chase it.
Well, he didn't think that the drink would work. And so I said, okay, dipshit, why don't you try it? And so he tried it, and I convinced him to sign over the deed to his house, to his car, to the plot of land that was reserved for his parents when they were going to die.
What about the luge?
And he had this giant ice luge in back that was actually a gift. It's one of the first meetings I had with the Ice Smith tribe. And it was made just for him. I brought him in with me and introduced him around. And I convinced him to drink the Orwellian spirits out of the ice luge. And once he was underneath it, I threw it on him. I kind of just dropped it on him.
You threw the luge on Teddy?
It slipped, or I threw it, or I tried to kill him, or whatever.
Now, why would you try to murder someone who you thought... You describe him as a friend, I am guessing. This is a man with whom you shared secrets, he shared secrets, you shared a bed together, and many other things, perhaps, and you tried to murder him with an ice luge.
That question has haunted me ever since. It was like temporarily some kind of darkness overtook me, and I wanted nothing more than to destroy him. But I quickly snapped out of that and was like, oh, crap. What did I just do? I mean, I kept the deeds to all his valuables, of course. And I ended up developing a small gazebo ride where his parents were supposed to be buried.
And you reconstruct the luge in memoriam for him.
Yeah, I made it into a guitar. He always liked to play guitar.
Now, back to your article. On the Scene travels around the country. You talk to a lot of different people around the whole cityscape, landscape nationwide. Are all mezcal products run by the cartel?
Are you a cop?
No, we are just journalists. I am a journalist who does nothing but hounds for the truth and runs straight into the fire and the fray. I look for the treasure. I look for the victory. I'm here just to know the truth.
Okay. Yes, the cartel runs everything, especially with mezcal, but most goods that are traded in the Americas are at the mercy of the cartel.
I knew it, because with your Orwellian drinks, you have actually gotten into the dark world, the dark underbelly of drink distilleries.
Yes.
And a lot of different drink distilleries and drinks are run by shady organizations, such as the cartel.
Well, once they saw the power to actually control a person's mind and convince them to do anything you wanted them to do, they said, hey, they said, me like you very much.
And the Mezcal Mule is actually just an Orwellian cocktail fashioned to tequila.
That's exactly right. And the Mezcal Mule is actually, the first one was a person. We used the Orwellian drink to convince this individual to swallow a bunch of balloons filled with various cartel products and travel across the border with them.
And she, of course, died in process.
I don't know what happened to her.
The balloons actually didn't pop inside of her, as happens to many mules. She actually slipped in the shower when she had already landed in the U.S., was found dead on the bottom of the shower.
Maybe that's what happened. Could be. That sounds about right. I mean, I saw it happen, so that's definitely what happened.
So she was found dead, and you have since, I'm assuming, kept up your relationship with the cartel, and it has developed over the years. How has your article... Hold on. Is your article just a cover for you to work for various organizations around the country?
Yes.
And that, folks, is journalism. That is how you journalize.
You just got journalized.
Jack, I applaud you, actually, on being entrepreneurial. That is quite the feat.
It's funny. All the meetings I went to, they talk about, moment of clarity. And here we are. I'm fully exposed. No one can touch me.
That is very deep indeed. You actually, no one can touch you because you're very versed in self-defense techniques. You actually once got into a cartel fight with nothing but a cactus.
That's true. I was actually in the front yard of one of the major jefes of the Southwestern cartel. And, with people's attempts to save water, the current drought, he's got a lot of cacti in his front lawn instead of traditional, watered grass products. So I picked up one of these cacti and used it as a weapon. I created some sort of pulley system within the cactus and was able to fire very powerful shots of whatever that crap is inside of a cactus into people's faces and stuff. It was pretty awesome.
You didn't use the needles that are inherent on the outside of a cactus?
No, I thought that would be too easy.
That you are nothing if not resourceful. I believe cactus have some sort of a acidic juice in them, and you had to aim for the eyes, otherwise it wouldn't do anything. So you blinded 13 different cartel members that day.
I did.
Including the Jefe.
I did, and once they were blinded, I gave them a sip of my Orwellian cocktail and convinced them to thank me for what I had done. And I laughed so hard. It was funny.
And then you actually used the tears from the blindness to concoct another drink. It was the Blind Jefe Port Wine collaboration.
Yes, and this is probably something I'm most proud of. It's actually sold at high-end boutique hotels. It's a dessert drink, and it causes a person to become euphoric. They feel like they're entitled to everybody and anything, and they become a bar's most perfect patron.
And actually, much like the Moonshiners, it causes everyone to dance.
Correct.
But to dance until they can literally dance no more.
Correct. That's the downside. The upside is that it fulfills my ultimate dream of bringing both bartenders and bar patrons to their ultimate level of activity. They are jovial and happy and supportive in a way that my brother never was.
Now, you are actually in the cartel.
I'm a captain.
You are a Jefe. Are you a captain or are you a Jefe?
Depends which language you're speaking.
So how did you become a Captain Jefe?
Well, I proved that I'm fearless pretty quickly. When I was a boy, I got the shit beaten out of me pretty good. And ever since then, I've never been afraid to pick a fight, even knowing I would lose. And so, we were all having lattes, and a rival cartel came, and they said, hey gringo, why don't you go over there and show us what you're made of? In so many words. And so I did. I pulled the guy up by his collar and spit in his face and took a horrible beating from him and all his men.
Mm-hmm.
And the cartel pled their loyalty to me ever since.
Tell me about your eating shit cocktail inspired from that exact interaction.
Well, as they were leaving, I said, eat shit. And so I thought, I wonder if there's a way to express that through drink. Back to this whole feeling of empowerment and expressing yourself politically in ways that you can't without booze. And I found this cocktail that was so revolting that people would feel like someone had taken a big shit in their mouth as soon as they took a shot or a sip of it.
Jack, that is disgusting, but I applaud you because I don't think anyone truly likes alcohol. They just like what it does to them.
Correct. And we put in a little MDMA in it, so it makes people feel euphoric, even though it literally tastes like shit.
Now, Jack, I want to pivot a little bit.
Pivot in the post.
Pivot in the post. I'm not so much of a sportsman, but I do know my drinks. What makes a good mole?
A what?
Like a mulled wine or a mulled cocktail. What makes a good drink?
Attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
Trusting your ingredients. And having a sense of respect for a bigger world outside of yourself.
And being able to really take care of this being. Because when you are making a drink, you are going on a journey with these ingredients and with this cup, and it's from your hands to someone's intestines.
Correct.
And each step has to be taken very deliberately and carefully. Crafted.
Exactly. And you have to take all your ego out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You put the object ahead of yourself. You say, this drink isn't a reflection of who I am. I am not this drink. I am helping make this drink, which will exist outside of myself for other people to enjoy. And I take that humble position because I believe in the power of alcohol.
So you are, in a lot of ways, an artist breathing life into art.
You said it, not me, but yes, that's definitely right.
And your art is alcohol, of which you are an addict, self-professed, but still, it is artistry.
You know, for me, it's a necessity. You can call it an addiction, but I mean, are you addicted to food because you need to eat food? I need to drink. Does that make me addicted to alcohol?
Now, Jack, how are your taste buds different than other mixologists? You have a certain adaptation genetically that gives you a slight edge.
Yeah, on the side of my tongue, on my left side of my tongue, most of my taste buds have actually been severed. I was actually bit by a dog on my tongue when I was about 3 or 4 years old. And
of course, that's where the nickname Bud comes from,
Exactly.
given to you by a lot of your friends.
yeah, so everyone started calling me Bud because, you know, everyone knew, oh, make him drink it out of the left side of his tongue. You know, he won't be able to feel it the way we feel it. But, you know, like a blind person gets better hearing. As it turned out, I developed a high tolerance for alcohol and a special ability to taste and identify the specific ingredients within an alcoholic beverage because I wasn't overwhelmed by sort of the taste of alcohol. People sort of get that putrid look on their face. For me, it was, oh, I don't even feel the putrid. I can just go direct to the source of what is making this delicious cocktail so delicious.
And you can even manipulate each of your taste buds to separate the different ingredients, kind of shuffle them around so you can sit the bitterness on the back of your tongue and the sweetness on the front, so you get the complete, the most experience out of every single drop of whatever you're tasting.
Yeah, and in a way, I'm sort of making my own little remix in my mouth. You know, I sort of think of myself as kind of a hip-hop DJ in that way. I'm sort of taking the samples, you know, take that James Brown loop and turn it into a hit single.
Cunnilingus, yes or no?
Yes, 100 times yes. Mainly because I love it.
Analingus, yes or no?
That's a hard no, unfortunately.
Because your taste buds can split up every single one of the tastes and you can taste it to their full extent.
Exactly.
It is a gift and it's a curse.
That duality is what's plagued me my entire life.
Airlingus, yes or no?
I can't help it. I love the taste of humid molecules.
I do mean the airline Aer Lingus. It's the Irish.
Oh, I was picturing sticking my tongue out in the sky. But yeah, I'm not particular to any single airline.
Now back to the hip hop slants. Ice Cube himself is actually one of the few other people in the world who can also separate taste buds, and he has come up recently with a competing brand of Orwellian drinks.
Yeah, he, I don't know. It pisses me off, but he's like, well, what would Coke be without Pepsi? Like, I don't know, did Pepsi steal the secret formula from Coke?
So he is actually using Diet Coke to infect most of the bartenders on the East Coast, whereas you're mostly on the West Coast.
Yeah.
How is this affecting your relationship, not only with your bartenders, but also with the cartel? Because I understand he's walking into your territory a little bit.
Well, they're putting a great deal of pressure on me to, quote-unquote, fix the problem. And I keep trying to explain to them that, you know, Ice Cube isn't someone that, you know, can just disappear. But they're insistent, and they know where most of my extended family is. So I'm either going to have to take them on or take him on. And I don't know which one's worse. Ice Cube's still pretty well connected.
Now, what is the Orwellian factor? How do you make that? Is that just an MDMA shoot-off, or what is the concoction that creates the mind control device? And when does that be put into the drink?
You know, I appreciate you're asking me that question. But unfortunately, that knowledge is what keeps me alive and makes me valuable to my employers. So I am unable to share that with anybody.
Now, you currently are sitting in... Where are you at the moment?
I'm at Embassy Suites in Portland, Oregon. But I'm in the penthouse room, so I've got like 3 rooms pretty much. Too many bars.
Fantastic. Jack Coolidge, just so you know, the FBI will be at your location in about 15 minutes.
Oh, man.
I believe that they have the keys to your room and have surrounded the building already. Feel free to make this one call to anyone who you want out in the world if you want to say goodbye to anyone on this is your last chance while you're on Sidebar, while I have you here if you want to apologize or make a shout out.
Just tell ICE that I was never really going to kill him. I was just, I was never going to actually do it.
Now, Jack, this would normally be the part in the interview where I would ask what's next, but I know what's next. You're going to federal, you're going into prison, and you're going to be there for a very long time for mind control and cartel-related incidents, unless, of course, you flip and you become a snitch.
I'm also thinking of using the Carpe Diem argument in court.
What is that argument?
Seize the day. Seize the day.
Jack Coolidge, Imbibe Magazine. Next week on the Sidebar. I like forests. Do you like forests? We all like forests. I'm Clint Mars Novak. Thanks for stopping by.